What if you wrote a book that was relevant at the time? You gave relevant lessons and advice at the time that you published it, and then time fast forwards and technology speeds past the content in your book. Would that embarrass you? Would you try to forget about the book? Or would you simply let it do what it's gonna do? Today's guest, Marie Incontrera, proves that that is not something you have to worry about. She authored a book based on her expertise at the time. Technology advanced so quickly that the information in her book was obsolete. But the risk she took with that book still got her paying clients. And in today's interview, she tells that whole story. What's going on, my winners and goal getters? I'm your host, Mellissa T, the Procrastination Bully. Welcome back to the Getting the Win Show. And our mission with this show is to help women who navigated a trauma or transition transmute that into transformation by writing and publishing your first book. And today's guest is a perfect example of that. Marie Incontrera is the owner of Incontrera Consulting. She now hosts the awesome course, the bestseller in a weekend, which she recently acquired from Alicia Dunham's Hopkins, who previously built that program up. But bestseller in a weekend is an author sprint, and it walks aspiring authors through their specific framework on how to get your ideas down on paper quickly, the cheat code to getting a book done, which is of course recording, and then all of the marketing know-how you're going to need after your draft is done, which is Marie's strength. Marie is able to bring her expertise into that bestseller weekend program to help on that end in terms of the marketing. And of course, she supplements it with her personal author journey. So today we get into that. Enjoy the interview. Welcome, my winners and goal getters. As promised, I have Marie Incontrera in the building. Welcome to the show, Marie. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Absolutely. So, for you watching and listening, Marie is a dynamo in the world of sort of marketing, publishing, like teaching people how to get their books done in record time. Like she has a system, and this is courtesy through our sort of mutual connection, Alicia Dunham's Hopkins now, I believe, since she recently
Yep,
remarried.
that's right.
Yeah. Um, kind of let's kind of run the clock back a little bit though, Marie, because of course you're an author, which was one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to have you on because you've been through the same process. You've been self-published. Walk us back to that moment when you first decided to publish your or get started writing your first book. What was that spark of inspiration for you, and how was the self-publishing journey for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started my business in May of 2016, and by January of 2018, I had decided to write a book. I had joined a self-publishing school webinar. And of course, anybody who sort of is in this space knows self-publishing school. They have incredible market share for entrepreneurs, and
Yep.
they can help you get it done quickly. And they laid out a system to do a draft within a few days, right? And they had this was in the days before AI, so they said you can record it, and then obviously you get it transcribed and everything like that. So
Yep.
um I was a solopreneur at the time, and I was doing a lot of social media for authors.
Hmm.
And so I thought, oh, interesting, this could be a really good thing for me to do. And so I self-published. I was published by March of 2016. And that was the year that I became a six-figure entrepreneur for the first time. And
Whoa.
yeah, released Social Your Book Launch. Okay.
Okay.
Um, it was I did it as cheaply as possible. I gave it to a friend to upload to Kindle, and I do have a 2-star review on my page that says exactly, that says I refuse to read it because the print is too small. So just know that. And did my own Canva book cover, and just got it out there. And I probably sold 300 copies, but the people who were on my launch team became my clients. They became trusted
Wow.
partners. They became referral partners, right? And so I got to see firsthand the kind of trust that having a book will build in the market for you as an expert, as someone who has a B2B service, as someone who has an expert level service, right? So that was a game changer for me early in entrepreneurship. I became well known in my corner of the market as somebody who could work with authors. That continued to pay dividends for the next, um, let's call it 9 years. Okay.
Wow.
So, yeah, in May of 2025, somebody hired me. She got on my calendar and I said, how did you hear about me? And she said, well, I've heard your name quite a bit and I'm coming out with a book and I bought your book. And I said, I had actually forgotten about the book. And I went, are you sure? You know, and because I wrote it in 2018, I wrote it before TikTok, I wrote it before Instagram Reels and LinkedIn newsletters and all of the things that I recommend doing now.
Yep.
And she said, yeah, but I remembered 2018, so it's social media, and I knew I could trust you. So I'm here. I want to
Mm,
work with you. Right.
wow.
Now, that's my obsolete little book that I uploaded for $200, probably all told, right? Imagine what a book that is done really high quality and with 10 plus years of being in the marketplace can do. So that's where my journey kind of started with my book, and that's what gave me the confidence to say my best, getting bestseller in a weekend would work and everything like that.
Wow. So I definitely got to ask a couple of follow-up questions there because just to paint the picture for our listeners and viewers to show them what's possible. One, before I even unpack anything,
Yeah.
key loudest lesson there for you listening and watching. If your biggest limiting belief, your fear, if your biggest concern is what if I write the thing and it flops, or what if I write the thing and it fails, Marie just showed you like her book was based on limited information in 2018. Technology shifted very quickly from then to now. So don't worry if you're writing based on the information you know at the time. Things are going to change. And the beauty of the publishing industry is you can always publish an updated edition of the very same title. Like we've seen established authors do that all the time, right, Marie? Like they'll have their updated 25th edition, whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's perfectly possible to re-release an updated version of the area of expertise that you're speaking on. So don't let that stop you from publishing your book. But Maria, follow-up question I wanted to kind of flesh out for with you was you gave a big figure as a result of the release of
Yeah.
that book. So talk about like what was the business structure around that that led to that kind of number?
Yeah, great question. So, most authors, including traditionally published authors with advances, don't sell much, right? They sell 300 copies maybe, right? 250 copies I think is um the average, and then of course you have people who well outpace that. Um but that's a normal number, right? That's actually, decent. And so what I tell my clients in Bestseller in a Weekend is that you are likely not going to get rich just from book sales. Unless you're a James Clear or a Jen Sincero or, you know, uh, I don't any of the other bigger names in publishing, right? Or you're a celebrity, you
Right.
are likely not going to be selling 40,000 copies a week. Even if you do a great launch and get on the one of the New York Times or the USA Today bestseller list, that's likely a very concentrated effort. You get out there and then the book drops off, right? But you can and should make money on the things that come next, right? If you
Mhm.
treat your book like a funnel, like the top of the funnel, easy impulse buy for people who are considering hiring you, or something you give away to people who are considering hiring you, you can make a way more money on the back end, right? And nobody hires
Mm,
me for less than $10,000 over time, right? So because I'm a high ticket service where I have a team and stuff like that, right? Like we do premium services. So
mm,
one author hiring me breaks me even on a book, right? One client hiring me after reading the book. That is the kind of thing that you want to build into the book launch, right? One easy way to do that, have a lead magnet in the book because Amazon and Barnes and Noble don't give you the names of the people who buy your book, right? So we want to provide additional value so that we can have them on your mailing list and we can keep
yep.
in touch with them, right? So that's an easy way to make sure you're capturing people. If 300 people read your book and one person buys something from you, right? That's like a 0.3% conversion rate, right? Easy numbers there. So
Mm,
over time, you can and should build business from the book.
absolutely. And by the way, this does include fiction, y'all. Like,
Yep.
it's not as clear in terms of putting the lead magnet in the book in fiction, probably towards the very end, but it is possible. Like when you have your book, you have that freedom to do that, to be able to build a community around the IP. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
That's
Yeah.
that's something you can do. And that's something that is only recently starting to get taught, Marie. Like I, like you, am a disciple of self-publishing school. Like
Yeah.
shout out to, to that whole
The
team.
Chandler.
Yeah. Like he was the one that helped me get my first book published in
Yeah.
2014. Like it
Oh
was
wow. Okay.
learning through
Yeah.
him. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, like make sure you take those notes, you listening and writing. Like there are opportunities to gather like email addresses and potential clients through your book. And I don't know if you do this, Marie, but like with my clients, my nonfiction clients, I'm like beginning, middle, end. Like put put like a a promotional page in the book or some kind of blurb to let
Yeah.
them know, hey, if you want to go further or if you're enjoying this material and wish to go deeper, here's an opportunity. You know what I mean? And that
That's
way
right.
it's not,
Yeah.
the book doesn't become a big ad, it's just a little, organic mention as they're reading.
Exactly. I usually say beginning and end, but it's good to hear that you do it in the middle too, right? Like I think that's super important because otherwise why did you write the book?
Yeah.
You want to have people engaging with you. And I agree with you, fiction it can sometimes be a sleeper thing. We have a client who is writing a novel about uh fraud and security breach, and she's, guess what, a securities consultant, right? So yeah, it's a really fun way to talk about some of the things that happen in the marketplace, you know and it's a different way to do it. So now she's got a differentiator and you can believe that she's going to have a lead magnet, right?
Hmm.
So those are the kinds of things that if writing fiction is on your heart in some way, you can find ways to tie it back to your business, right? I'm actually I'm writing a novel right now about a daughter who comes back. She's estranged. She comes back to save the family business. Um,
Wow.
so like you can believe that that has real application to my work as a business owner, right? You can believe that like I took a circumstance that isn't mine in a lot of ways and that has some truth, right? In terms of like somebody who if I see a problem I almost can't not fix it, right? I'm a little crazy like that, right, when it comes to business stuff. And so, I'm one of those people who I'm like, great, that's a really great premise for a novel. And I could also write another nonfiction book about how to build your business. And how many times can I say the same thing? So here's a creative way to do that.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I literally just recorded a short this morning about that.
Yeah.
The very last point I made was like you do have to market your own book and don't feel uncomfortable in saying the same
Yeah.
thing over and over again. I'm forgetting whether it's 11 touch points or 11 hours, but there is a statistic like in the world of marketing or business, like, but I know the number is 11. Like it
Yeah,
takes that many times for people to finally
that's
like
right.
be
That's right.
conscious of you and get curious enough to click on whatever the thing is, just to find out what you're doing. And if you're concerned about, well, I don't want to bug anybody, here's the truth of it. Think about yourself as a consumer. I know for
Yeah.
myself, Marie, like it can be either curiosity or annoyance. That's okay. Like either way, I'm clicking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even when I am annoyed, I'm like, why am I seeing this person so often? And I usually click because I'm still,
Right.
it still comes back to curiosity. Like even if you are bugging a person, it's still
Yeah.
going to feed into their curiosity. They're still going to be like, who is this person? Why do I keep seeing this person? And they're
Yeah.
going to click, which is the goal.
Right. Right. Exactly. And to your point, right? I'm a student of the Grant Cardone coaching program. Okay. And you like knowing what you know about me, that's probably a surprise in some ways, right? Like you're like, "Oh, you know, ideologically we don't always line up, Grant Cardone
Right.
and I, right? Like and the people in his
Yeah.
community." That being said, right? He can do 8 touch points. So the number that I have heard, which 11, it's a range, right? It's 8 to 12.
Okay.
So 8 to 12 touch points, he collapses time and he can do 8 in an afternoon, right? His
Wow.
team can do 8 in an afternoon, right? And when they call you, they double dial. Okay, so that gets through a spam filter. Then
Oh, yeah.
they email you and they text you. So guess what? You're probably going to see one of them, right? And you're going to respond to one. That's how that works. And on top of it, I see him all the time.
Hmm.
He's out there on social media and he's actually quite controversial on social media because
Yes.
he wants your attention. And
Yep.
so you know, there was one day I was like, I am going to take this marketing course, and because I think he is so full of it, I want to prove, right? It was
See?
a 497 course, and I was like, I am going to prove that, like, so I bought it, and I did a couple of the things in the course, and I got clients like immediately, and I was like,
See?
oh man.
See?
And then I filled out they had a thing at the end where you fill out, what kind of support do you need, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden I was on a sales call. All of a sudden I was, you know, getting signed up for coaching. All of a sudden I was getting signed up for coaching. All of a sudden all of this stuff, 2 years later, I've grown my business 200%, and
Wow.
a lot of it I can credit with them. They helped me do my acquisition with Alicia. They helped me make a lot of decisions in my business. And are they always right? No, of course not. Do I agree with everything? No, of course not. But I've taken the good with the bad, and it's all because of those touch points. And if you think of it as like sales is service, right? Marketing
Yes.
is service. And if you have
Yes.
a way to help somebody, you actually have a moral obligation to do everything you can to let them know, right? Because
Yes.
the truth is, if you know, you and I are very aligned in what we do, right? And you can help somebody build visibility and business and credibility in a way that many other business owners don't.
Hmm.
You can literally change somebody's life, right? So you should be telling people that, right? And how do you do
Yep.
it? How do you easily do it? Well, a book is the most accessible way, because if I go to your speaking engagements and I meet you for 10 minutes, am I more likely to buy the book or buy a $10,000 program from you, right? No, the book is going to help me build trust. That's another touch point. Maybe I'll join a webinar of yours. Maybe I'll connect on LinkedIn or whatever it is. Maybe I download the lead magnet. Now you know who I am, right?
Hmm.
But I might have never bought the $10,000 course if I didn't have all the accessible stuff up front.
Yeah. And you mentioned it before, but I want to reiterate for our folks listening and watching. A book builds trust. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because it is
that's right.
a lower ticket item. and folks are going to be curious to know what you're talking about. They want to see whether you know what you're talking about. And you heard it straight from Marie's mouth. I'm going to prove this person wrong. And then she consumed the content. She attended the course. Was like, oh wait, like they know what they're talking about. Like,
Yeah,
you wanted to learn more. So if you're curious about, whether or not you should write your book, whether it's worth doing, if anybody will take it seriously, let them try you. And I'll share something that my previous colleague, when I used to work in the news media industry, used to tell me, Marie. He taught me, let them tell you no. Like, do the
that's
thing
right.
first. Like, don't
Mhm.
block yourself first. Like, do the thing, whatever it is, ask the question, put the mic in this person's face, whatever. Let them tell you no,
Yeah.
but don't stop yourself. So this is really good. But given everything you've been experiencing on this side between starting your business, becoming an author, all of this is very different from where you started. You had a very unique and, in my opinion, like sexy 9 to 5. Obviously, didn't pay too, you weren't balling out of control with it. But please share with our audience what your original job was, which I think is really dope, and how
Well,
you
thank
transitioned.
you. So, I have never heard it be called a 9 to 5 before, so that's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, obviously not like literally 9 to 5. You had some interesting hours,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was a working musician in New York through my 20s, right? I went to graduate school for music, um, music composition, which what they don't tell you in music school is that composers don't get paid until they're famous, right? So, if you approach an ensemble or an orchestra and say, "Hey, I have this piece, would you play it?" Or you submit to a call to scores, very often there's no money in it, right? There might be
Mm,
$1,000 honorarium or something like that, which seemed huge at the time because nobody is getting paid. So a lot of people who are composers, classical jazz composers, become professors, and that's how they make their money, or they teach, and that's how they make their money. So I was teaching, during the day as a part time, music teacher and everything like that, sort of doing everything I could to survive. And I was also gigging. I had a band. I was paying the band. I was sort of like scraping everything together all the time, and I was coming home with $15,000 a year. Okay, so the math on that is about $1,300 a month. I had a $725 a month studio in Brooklyn, and that meant I had $500 to play with, and that meant we didn't have room for emergencies. We didn't have room for food. Sometimes we like there was a lot of ramen noodles. There was a lot of bags of chips for dinner sometimes. At one time I got hit by a car and I got on the subway after, because I was, and of course, like, his insurance probably would have covered it, right? But I could not take that risk. I was just like, nope, I picked up my bike. I was like, we're getting on the subway. And, thank
wow.
goodness everything turned out okay. But actually, like, I could have had a concussion. There was no way to know. So it's, it sounds it sounds sexy to be a musician, but the truth is, like, I was world class. I was playing Carnegie Hall and I was broke. And but I thought, "Oh, okay, well, this is just my life. This is what everybody I know that's my age is making." Right? And the dream is that you get famous, or you end up in a musician's seat on Broadway or something like that, or you get a really good teaching job at some point. Um but I wasn't thinking about what was next. I was sort of thinking, wow, I'm playing Carnegie Hall. I just gotta hold on, right? I gotta hang on, and eventually something will work financially. And then a friend of mine reached out to me and she said, I just want you to know you're selling out Carnegie Hall with your marketing skills. You're selling out your shows. You're doing really well. You're one of the only band leaders that can actually pay their bands. I had a 15-piece jazz band. I
That's
wasn't
a
paying,
good point.
yeah, and I wasn't paying them much, but I was paying them, right?
Right.
So, like, you think about that. I was like, okay, and she said, I think you should do this for people who could pay you money. And I was like, I don't know anything about business. why would I do this? I don't care about money. I was very anti-capitalist at the time, you know, and she said, but you you could make a little bit more money than you are. And she didn't quite know the economics. And she told me that later. She was like, I had no idea. I thought you were at least making 20 grand a year. And I was like, no, not even close. So she said, set a date and let's get you in front of a few potential clients. I'll make introductions for you and let's see if it works. And so I got that text message on March 30th, 2016. And May 2016 was my date because that was my 30th and a half birthday. And I was like, oh, this will be a good day for number one, you know, incident number one kind of thing. And she was like, we're gonna make this work. Like, she was convinced. She was like, you're gonna be good at this. And I was like, I don't know, we'll see, you know. And I really thought, like, I talked to my parents and I was like, Mom, Dad, I'm you know, kind of now also be an entrepreneur. And my mom was like, are you out of your mind? You're gonna get audited, you're gonna get arrested, like, what are we doing here? Because like I was known as somebody who was not making good financial decisions. As you know,
Wow.
I had been an artist. I was broke all the time. I was of course paying my rent and not in any amount of like crushing debt. But the truth was, like, I was living that close to the edge. And I said, you know what, I don't want to go to my deathbed and not know not know what the answer was. And so I said, I'm going to give this a try. I had two clients and a dream
Wow.
kind of thing. And on May 16th, 2016 was my first day. Um, I'm saying that because my 10th anniversary just passed. And Solopreneur had no idea. I was just like, we billed me as a virtual assistant who could do marketing, essentially, and the rest is history. Over time, we had some really great growth points, started hiring, eventually became an employer, um, added business lines over time, and literally it was just one client at a time, one idea at a time. Now we have a full suite marketing and visibility agency. We do social media, PR, speaker training placement, and now most recently books.
That is a beautiful journey. And
Yep.
given what you do teach in terms of the hero's journey, like
Yeah.
that was the perfect demonstration of it, including the refusal of the call. Because your
Yeah.
friend is like, you should get into this. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not
No,
interested.
no, absolutely not.
But then you became curious. You're like, you know what? I don't want to have to ask this question on my deathbed. Let me try it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And here we are. Like you were able to come back around with all the knowledge, and you're like, now I can help free some other people. Like
Right.
I'm going to use this book as the means now to teach anybody else
Right.
that is curious about this or even who's never heard of this as a solution before. Like, here's your ticket to freedom. Like, use this. So, like, very, very significant. And thank you for sharing that full journey. I'm aware of who the
Yeah.
friend is because I've studied you, like I've researched you,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I used to follow her. I used to follow her. So like it made so much sense. I was
Yeah.
like, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was such an awesome connection. And this also speaks to an important point that I make very often on the show, Marie, which is the importance of having a who. Like even if it's only one person
Right.
that's in your corner that can see a blind spot. She saw an opportunity that you weren't aware was there. Like you
Right.
had
Right.
unconscious competence. Like you were just selling out your shows, just knowing what you know without like in a detailed way planning out what you do. You're just like, I'm just doing my thing. But I love that you had somebody in your corner that saw that and was like, here's an opportunity. Like let's dive into this and see if we
Yeah.
can, expand your repertoire. So kind of speak to the importance of that, like having somebody in your corner.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like I've been trying to pay it forward the last 10 years, right? Like there have been one of the things that has been really important to me was giving leadership opportunities to people who don't often have leadership opportunities, right? That has been important to me. We've hired almost every single one of the interns that have come our
Wow.
way, and given them their first paid jobs out of college, right? So to me, that has been I feel it's my job, it's my duty, if you will, because I didn't get here, I didn't get here alone. You didn't get here alone either. But the important thing is to, to point the things out sometimes that you can see that somebody else might not know that they have some sort of brilliance, right? So, I feel that that's a very important part of my journey. Um, and whenever somebody points something out to me, I make sure to listen because you just never know, right? You just don't know what you don't know sometimes. And you're right, it's a blind spot, right? You know, I I didn't take for granted that I was good at marketing. People were showing up to my shows, and thank God I was breaking even every single time. That was all I could see was, Carnegie Hall costs a night at Carnegie Hall cost me $40,000. I had never made $40,000 in a year, and so I was like envelopes of money and oh, can I do this job for you for $1,000? Can I do this? Can I do that? I was sort of already gathering all of the money that I could, and my business was starting, so I was figuring things out. And I had such a blind spot about what I was able to do. And so somebody pointed that out to me. How lucky am I? Right. So, and all you can do is point things out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I like that you decided to pay it forward. Like
Yeah.
we don't hear enough about that. It happens often enough, but we never hear it
Right.
often. So yeah, definitely appreciate you for doing that for the people in your life. Um, the other thing I wanted to get into as well was you have accomplished TEDx. Like you have been on a TEDx stage. And then you even shared with us that you were actually a TEDx organizer, which good Lord, like that seems like it's
It's a
very
lot of
rigorous.
work. It's a lot of work.
That seems like it's a rigorous job. But talk to us about how you were able to transition from, was it that particular book that got you on the TEDx stage the first time, or what was that process like for you to get on the stage?
Yeah, so actually quite random. So my one of the first people who came to me as a virtual assistant was somebody looking to get on a stage. And I was like, I went to this friend and I was like, I have no idea how to do this. And she said, you're smart, you'll figure it out. Okay. And I was like, okay. I barely knew what a TEDx was. Um, did my research. Um, and you know, it turns out it's a very creative endeavor. So I figured, all right, well, I'll give it a try, right? I quoted what sounded to me like an insane amount of money, which was $1,000. And I was like, I'll figure this out with you kind of thing. And he said yes right away. He was like, yeah, of course. Okay. By the end of the month, he was booked, um, for 2 events. And which, by the way, I could never recreate that magic, and TEDx is a very saturated place, and some people get placed right away, some people don't. So it has no bearing on the idea, but we happen to, hit pay dirt very, very quickly. Um, and I ended up the organizer reached out to me and said, "By the way, do you know anybody else?" And I said, "Oh, well, me," you know. And so she was like, "Well, tell me about your idea." And my idea was jazz is our framework for innovation, right, for business innovation, and looking
Yeah.
at things like the saxophone is actually a mistake. The
Wow.
saxophone was invented as a hybrid of the clarinet and the bassoon, and it was put in the orchestra at first, and it didn't work in the orchestra. It was too loud. It's not a blending instrument. And then it was taken to a jazz band, and it just completely, it would have been this like weird novelty instrument, and now it's one of the mainstays in American music history. So, that was sort of my thesis was, um, you know, jazz musicians are some of the best innovators, and the business world can learn about innovation by using their frameworks. So that was my idea. Um,
Wow.
and it was successful. I mean, I learned a lot about speaking during that time. Um, and I learned a lot about how people's ideas can really change the world, right? You might have an idea and your framing on it can really change somebody's way of thinking, right? We have somebody that we work with who has invented a new plastic polymer from cotton waste, right? That is a world changing idea because you're solving a few problems there, right? And we're all just regular people. We all put our pants on one leg at a time, so what I love about the TEDx stage is that it really is made for people who aren't famous, right? It's made for people who maybe don't have an online presence, or don't they could have a book but they don't have to, but it really is ideas first.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that you're like, well, there's me. Yeah, so another key lesson there for my folks watching, like include yourself, like you belong at the table. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because a lot of the folks in my audience, Marie, are people who serve, and they usually tend to put themselves last. You know
right,
what I mean? Like they'll, serving for the family, being excellent on the job, maybe doing way beyond what the job description, you know, lists.
I don't know anything
um,
about that. I never do that.
right. But just like pouring, constantly pouring out, pouring themselves out, and either forgetting themselves or intentionally putting themselves last to make sure that everyone else in their orbit is taken care of, either because they feel they're not worthy of it or because they have told themselves that they have to do that. Maybe they're single moms or, married moms, but still they're like, I gotta make sure everybody else around me is taken care of. So yeah, put yourself at the table. Marie put herself at the table. Like she was helping her client, but she put herself at the table. And that's a brilliant idea, by the way, Marie. I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, the very cornerstone of jazz, like the core of it is improvisation, which is why it's so innovative. So I
Right.
love that you were able to carry that over into a business principle. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I literally was making it up on the fly. Right? It's like, okay, well, this is my idea. I wanted to find a way to talk about my former life, right? And that was what I came up with, and I was like, actually, this really works, right? It works to um think about it that way. And the truth is these people changed what the sound of American music sounds like, right? They changed the language in which
Mm,
we sing, and we make music, and we express. And so it was just such a fun time. um and it's something I rarely think about because it was so long ago, right? Like I'm like, oh yeah, oh, that's right, I did that a while ago. So
yeah, and this actually speaks to an important point. Both you and I teach this to our clients, which is on my end, I call it a story inventory, but I always remind my viewers, like, create an inventory of stories from your life that you can pull lessons from.
yeah.
Because that was one of the things we discovered this weekend, Marie. Like, we were hearing a couple of the other ladies on the call, like, oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that. But it was
Yep.
because you prompted us to go back and, like, jot those things down that, like memorable moments in our lives,
Yeah.
and speaking about it in a way that's as big and bold as possible, like, jogged our memories. It's super
Yeah,
important.
yeah, exactly. And that is I find that that's a muscle that you can build, right? Like when I go for a walk in the morning, I think about the things that I've done, right? When
Mm,
I have a moment to journal, I think about what are some of the coolest things I've ever experienced? What are some of the coolest things that people I know have experienced, right?
mm,
And it's like when we were talking, right? You likely, I don't know if this is true, right? Because we don't know each other that long, but you likely don't lead with some of the Navy stories, right? You don't lead with some of the things that you talked about and they came out over time, right? Especially right now because you're an author coach, right? Like you do editing, you do all of these things to do with stories. You the story you led with was somebody else's story, right? And of course it was a client story, so it had to do with you naturally, but there are things that people would not know unless you tell them. having been in the Navy, having been done all of these things, right? Having, you know, had a burnout and all of the things that you talk about, you deserve to tell the full story, and people deserve to know that sometimes the failures are the way that we build credibility, right? If I just said to you, well, I have a multi-million dollar business and it's been fine and it's been great and all 10 years I have grown, you're you would be like, okay, you're full of it. I'm sorry. You know, but I can tell you, like, I've almost lost my business. I've burned out hard. I've had health problems because of my business. You know, I gained 100 pounds through COVID, right? There are all these things that you can talk about, and and it makes you that much more credible, and it makes the success story that much sweeter, so I always love that exercise because you get to see so many facets of people.
Yeah, for sure. And that's part of the reason why I reach that specific group of people that I talk to,
Yeah.
because one, they pour out, and two, they tend to bury those painful memories because they're painful. To which I always say, go back to them, train your mind that you're looking specifically for those lessons. Like, you're not about to go
Yeah.
back to this thing to just dive in head first and get lost in it. No, no, no. Prime your subconscious mind that you're going in there specifically for the lessons, and then only extract
Right.
those.
Right.
Because now, as someone who serves, you're doing this to turn all of it around and serve somebody else, which is
Right.
what you're already good at. You know what I mean? Because that's what makes you relatable. Like, the painful stuff, the embarrassing stuff, the stuff that didn't work, the eggs we broke, like all of that stuff makes us relatable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like the social, your social media book, like that, when you shared that story, I was like, that's perfect. Because it's like, here's this thing, it became obsolete, not through any fault of your own. Like, technology and culture moved in a different direction, and
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna bring this up again. And somebody else found it, and you were still able to get a client out of it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, my
It makes
obsolete
it
book
relatable.
made me money, right? That's insane. That is totally insane. And it's a fun story. It shows that you don't have to be perfect, right? And the book itself was far from perfect. I wasn't a book publisher at the time. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, great, I'm busy. Just put it up. Somebody put it up for me. Didn't even look at it, and here we are.
Exactly. Exactly. So as we start to wrap up, I'm gonna like just open up the floor for anything we haven't discussed that you want our audience to know. Like, is there any parting words you want to give them?
Yeah, I think keep writing and give yourself the chance to tell your story, whether it's on social media or in the media or in a book or all of the above eventually or on stage, right? That is how we differentiate ourselves. Otherwise, who- well, there are a million book coaches out there. Why would I hire you over somebody else? Well, because I'm human and I can see you, and here's the reason that we relate, right? That's always the conversation I have with my clients is like, you know, I want to make sure I'm a good fit for your book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to make sure that I'm also a good fit for your book, right? Not just
Mm-hmm.
that you're a good fit for us, right? And oh yeah, we want to have you do the business and everything like that. No, actually, I want to make sure your book is going to be best served in my hands as opposed to somebody else's.
Important distinction. Like, and that's one of the things that's important for me too. Like, making sure folks feel seen
Yeah.
and heard. Because like all of us, I don't know if you're familiar with the book Never Split the Difference, Marie, but that man, like Chris Voss,
Oh, okay.
he's a retired negotiator. Yeah. And that was the lesson he learned over all those years of experience with the FBI and hostages and all of that. Like, people just want to be heard. The most terrifying terrorist in the world, gun in
Wants to be heard,
hand,
right?
they
Wants to be
just
heard,
want to be heard. Once they're heard, they de-escalate,
right?
and you can actually have a conversation that comes out with a beneficial result. So the key is always like making sure like we see you, we hear you, and that your goals are met. You know what I mean,
Yeah,
for you
right.
watching, listening. Yeah. That your
That's right.
goals are met. So please, on that note, let them know how they can connect with you, how they can work with you and go further.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, check out incontrera.com. That's my last name. You can follow me on LinkedIn. My Instagram is Marie Does Business. So you can connect with me on all the socials. On my website, you can get the free 1 hour author starter kit. That's an easy way to dive in. Um, it's a good prelude to bestseller in a weekend, which of course is how you and I met. Bestseller in a Weekend is a wonderful program. I am not the creator of it, so I can say that and not be bragging. I of course acquired it from Mellissa last year, and it's taken over 1,600 authors from idea all the way to published. So it's a really, really fun, you know, part of my calling in life. So would love to have you all in Bestseller in a Weekend if you feel it's a fit. And if not, book a call with me and we can have a conversation.
Absolutely. And for those listening and hearing the TEDx part, and maybe you want to hear that, Marie has a program for that too. So book a call with her so you
Yeah.
guys can talk even further with that. Before we go, Marie, I do want to talk about your upcoming book because I do want to like prime them in case they want to go deeper with you through the book. So kind of talk about the one that's coming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. You're holding my feet to the fire to actually get it done. So
Same.
thank you for that. So it's called Make It Count. Um, How to Build $1 Million Business All by Yourself. And you can get a free chapter on my website actually, so you can check that out. It is the story of how I built my business, and all of the things that you as a solopreneur can and should have in place, right? Based on
Mm,
that. And it's all about revenue generation and visibility and scale and all of those things. And I tell all the warts and all stories of, the time that I got a letter from the government and thought my business was going to shut down, right? Like things like that, the real stories of what it means to be in business for 10 years.
beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, guys, be sure to connect with Marie, whether with the free call or with getting that free chapter. I would say do both. I'm just saying. um, but yeah, Marie, thank you so much for coming on the
Yeah.
show, sharing your story, and you dropped a lot of gems. So you guys listening and watching, please like take all the notes, rewatch this, and go forth and write. You know what I mean? As Marie said,
Love it.
keep writing.
Love it.
We
Thank you
want
so
to see
much
your
for
books
having me
out in the
today.
market. Absolutely, my pleasure. Was that not an incredible interview? Like I learned a lot from it too, and I learned a lot over the weekend in terms of participating in the bestseller in the weekend program myself. Like getting to know Marie, getting to learn her author journey was very insightful, and even learning her speaker journey was very insightful. So I wanted to bring her onto the show for you so you could gain those insights as well. So be sure to follow her, get connected with her. I put everything in the description so you can get started. But in the meantime, in between time, if you haven't yet, subscribe here at Getting the Win on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads at Getting the Win Show. In the meantime, in between time, have a great and productive rest of your Wednesday and a great and productive rest of your week. Peace.